the scribe reports back. Hopefully they can then understand their own writing, is what I tend to have. And I should have mentioned before, Dave's gone to a lot of trouble. So the reason for the composition of your tables is to get diversity of thought. So Dave's gone to a lot of trouble. That's why you think, well, hang on, why don't they not table 10 or number 1? That's why. It's not all from your listings or all from your particular segment. So well done, Dave, that's nice. Whether it worked out or not, the intent was excellent. You will need to demonstrate your listening skills, please. And what I mean by that is, please don't repeat an area or an issue that somebody else has raised. So you might need to refer to some of the other stuff on your list. So each table will reporting back 1. Now the last 3 tables mightn't have anything to report back because they might say, well, all of our areas and issues have been covered. Great! That tells me you're closely in line. So we're actually going to go in, compliment us all. Table number 10, you're on the first. There's 1. So what is one area that you believe the MRA needs to focus on? And if your group came up with suggested solutions, we'd love to hear those as well.
Okay, we spent considerable time. We came up with 11 things altogether.
Whoa! You might need to share some of yours with the last couple of tables.
Okay. Our number one was the education aspect of teaching all drivers, all the way from the L plate and all the written education and everything, to have motorcyclists and the presence of motorcycles included more heavily.
Okay, so if I can paraphrase, so the whole education process from go to low needs to have involvement from MRA, is that what you're saying, in that process?
It's just education, but the motorcyclists exist more than I think that they're teaching yet.
Oh, okay, excellent. And did you have any suggested solutions on that one?
We were so busy writing that.
Thank
We
you.
didn't have time.
That's it.
We need a day, but half.
I know, and look, the intent with the timing was deliberate, because sometimes if you come up with 15 or 20 per group, and we've got 10 tables in the room, my experience is that's unachievable. You know, you'll have 50 things to chase as an MRA, voluntary organisation. So that was the intent. Thanks, sir. Scribe? Must be made curious for yourself, those people don't know.
Yeah, hi,
So we're just doing one,
Yeah. So I'm Steve, I'm one of the other safety officers of the MRA. We discussed a few different things, but consensus was a road rules awareness campaign to cover changes in road rules. So our TV campaign basically pushed for that, similar to like the changes in mobile phone rules, but around things given like indicating on roundabouts, which people seem to be confused about. Just to keep that flowing and working on that.
So it's the lobbying or the SKU of, is that what we're getting at?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so discussions with obviously Road Safety Commission and inviting feedback to them about doing that. And we've met with the guys and talked about being more involved in creating videos and stuff like that. So we'll work on that.
Terrific, thank you. And moving on, let's try this quick, please.
Just to, we already talked education, but education should start at primary school. And the MRA to get involved in going around primary schools and doing that. That's where it should start, not in year 10 or whatever it is.
Beautiful. And did you write down that as a possible solution? Yeah, thanks.
Motorcycle assessors should be motorcyclists, not car drivers that think they'd like to be motorcyclists.
So if I've got you right, so to get the qualification of an assessor, you would need, a prerequisite would be to be a motorcycle rider.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful, thank you. If you pass it to the next table, please, Scribe. Once again, remembering something different, if we could, please.
Yeah, good afternoon everyone. My name's Paul Jagan. And thanks to the forum. This is my first forum that I've attended.
Welcome, Paul.
I think the one that I would like to share with you, the thinking at least was prompted by what these gentlemen raised as a question, which was around quality of data. That actually got us thinking about forums that occur like this annually, or perhaps even more frequent, biannually.
At the moment, biannually.
And it was thinking about the value of the forum summary information. So at the end of each forum, there may be a summary that talks about what were the main considerations, the main targets, the main goals, the main changes that occurred from the previous year. What does that help us data analysis, that being more granular, was the one of the main points by way of suggestion that came from what these chaps were saying. And it's really about trying to get the thinking around corrective action. So whilst there's lots of really interesting information that's being shared, what actually is being done in using that information? What does it help us understand about taking action?
So in my opinion, Paul, the two recommendations are very closely linked.
Yep.
And the reason I was looking at Dave, do you want to talk about that now or in your closing statements? Because I think it's a really key one, isn't it? We spend all this time every 2 years. What gets done?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Dave, I'm just going to ask you to address that.
Well, first of all, we will be on our website, and I'm sitting here with our website, there is over there. All the information from this and from the survey will be on the website. It might take a week or two to get it all together. And at the end of this, we're going to get the actions from all the tables, your ideas, presentation, and we want to get that proper action plan together. So then we'll work on stuff. We can get the Department of Transport, we can go to the main road, we can go to the Road Safety Commission with the action plan and keep on pushing this. In time to come, I think years to get some of these things through, but we're going to walk away from this with an action plan and not just a bunch of papers. Answer your question?
Outstanding, yes. So I don't know whether that can materialise into some sort of summary. So when you open the forum next time, it would be almost a recap and summarising the previous year, and then continue that on so that there is this historical progress. So forward planning and progress was one of the points that we highlighted in that context. And how have we progressed and where are we now? I guess was the
Yeah, I think that's the latter is very important. It's not just the summary, it's the progress of the actions of the implementation. You know, are we achieving something with all this? Beautiful, thank you, Paul. And welcome for your first one. Scribe for the next table.
Thank you. We were passionate about advanced training, so across the board, because it addresses a range of things like bad habits and curing bad habits. So you might have been riding for 40 years, but it's 1 year of experience, 40 times. Another idea is to focus on getting into clubs, like motorcycle clubs, like not picking out anyone in particular, but the Ducati Club was mentioned, BMW, Triumph, etc., to talk about riding beyond your skills, riding beyond your skill level. So there's pockets of people within each club that are doing exactly that compared to the rest. So some mechanism for going out to clubs, because they represent a huge volume of motorcyclists, and recognising that the cost of courses is prohibitive. So how do you actually get more advanced training? I suggested instead of fines for make people go on a course and pay for the course. So that was the main. Thing. Advanced training.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice link to the corrective action. So if I've got it right, can I just paraphrase? It's the availability or the supply of that advanced training.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Travis, is this on? So we came up with the road surface. Needs to be more target. We covered that for riding education about where to ride on the road surface when the roads are degraded. Also, there should be signs put up if we know the road's in a bad situation and the 4 main roads can get out there and fix it. So the signs would warn motorcyclists, hey, it's happened here. And then also the roads need to be designed better, maintained better, and there needs to be more of an ongoing rectification works for that.
Okay, so it sounds like a strong link to David from Maiden Road's presentation, but you just actually made it even bigger with the road surfaces, not just the bitumen bleed, correct?
Bitumen bleed would be the thing, yeah.
Yeah, the major, but also the road surfaces.
But yeah, but putting signs up to that,
Yeah.
motorcyclists got to have the next corner and stuff.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yes. From our table, we represented with 25% of us were actually in this right. But we ended up going back to the data question and the problem, and it was really to ensure that we really understood the root cause of what was going on out there. So that would enable us to make sure that we are focusing on the right things. So probably more focus and effort into getting better data to give us good information to build from.
So once again, I think we've got to live there with what Dale said before, what Paul probably hinted at on behalf of your group. So it's getting more data and analysing some quality outcomes from it. That's what I'm hearing there. Thank you, Roger. Skype for the next group, Lee.
Hello, I'm Lee Kirby from Stay Upright. At this table, we spoke about a few things. I suppose one of the things that was different for, as to, from what you guys have spoken about so far, was two things. Stiffer fines for people using mobile phones when driving. Now, how would the MRA maybe influence that somehow or whatever? Maybe take the data from the inattentive blindness, that study over there, and maybe push that on that level.
But also, Shane Carrick wasn't paying attention.
That's all right, must work. And maybe in respects to data, wouldn't it be good to get some more data around how technology in vehicles has actually impacted on safety as well? Yep.
So the first one I heard was around penalty.
Yep.
The second one was around, once again, more data. Yeah, a little bit of a common theme coming out of that one. Thank you. Next group, please. Scribe.
It's table 2, Chris. Being towards the end, we don't have too much to provide that hasn't already been discussed, but just with respect to training, we think the MRA could focus in on early level training at the learner's permanent stage. Early lessons learned normally stick in the mind. Education, determine the target audience by using statistics to work out if they're commuters or enjoyment, and how we can tailor education programs. And what we have that hasn't been mentioned is perhaps a little bit more information about the available technology around for bikes, clothing and motorcycles. There's already a lot of work done there, but there is some really good technology out there now that above the old ABS, things like traction control, TFT screens, pressure sensors in tyres, quick release padding in motorcycle helmets. There's good impact absorbing material inside of helmets. And clothing mentioned for airbags, abrasion resistance, reflective tape, stuff like that. Most of the stuff we have here is already covered by others.
Yeah, which I think is healthy because it shows that alignment. So a couple of things for me. Once again, some synergies with the education comments. Can I just check in the technology component you talked about? Lee, was that similar to what you were getting at?
In a sense, I think we can relate that okay.
No, thank you. And our final group.
Thank you. Okay, so we are the rule brokers here. I'm going to talk about two things. We can do that. To build on the training, Matt's going to talk about education and training, but we focused on attitudes. So the purpose of that's creating extra skills and everything is, but underpinning that has got to be the attitude that I'm responsible for my own safety, and also the safety of those around me. So a focus on sort of culture and attitudes needs to be focused on within that.
In the education process, is that what you're saying there?
Yeah, that's right. And then the other thing we talked a lot about was people have mentioned data, and we talked about incident investigation and the need to look at better ways of doing that. But instead of reinventing the wheel, having a look across jurisdictions and how they do that to learn from them, rather than spending a lot of time figuring it out for ourselves.
Okay. So the last one for me is when you say that it's that buzzword benchmarking. Let's compare ourselves to what other people are doing it really well. Is that what you're saying? And let's learn from that. Yeah, nice one. Did you have somebody in mind on that one? You mentioned something I didn't pick up on.
Apparently, I didn't write it down. New Zealand and South Australia investigate their
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And we've heard a couple of examples about Victoria and using their data as well. Lovely. Now, some themes coming out. Sue, you had 11. Was there any there in that 11 that hasn't been raised that you think would be useful for your colleagues to hear? It's just more opportunity.
Most of it has been covered throughout the room. Everybody had great ideas. Advertising, I suppose, which I guess goes into the education thing and everything, but there's, come up with some really good ads for, like from a rider's, the impact on a rider when he he gets into an accident on families' work, picking up the pieces, as it were, of what happens when you injure a motorcyclist while you're driving in your car, or however it's done. Encouraging manufacturers to go with the MotoCap, to be more participating in MotoCap ratings, and standardizing, or whatever it is that they do. And yeah, more detailed statistics on crash investigations. Again, all that, yeah.
So it sounds like, once again, a bit of commonality, and as I said, my sense as an external facilitator is quite a bit of alignment in the room. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you, and thank you to your colleagues, and especially thank you to the scribes for doing that. Well done. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Steve?
Peter. There was
Peter, sorry, Peter.
something mentioned down in the in-group there, when you mentioned about the clubs, interacting with MRA. We're trying to be as interactive as we can. And, we're doing a lot more email marketing, a lot more social media marketing. So we're being really proactive in that space. So one of the things that we really want to make sure we're doing is connecting in with all of the clubs in WA. So if you haven't liked the Facebook page, if you're not on our database, then please, join our database. We want to communicate with you, and we want your feedback ongoing, because this is just the start from here on. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I just wanted to acknowledge your point. Absolutely valid.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. And to tag on to that, I think every table has some white bits of paper which gives comments or suggestions that you would like to provide the MRA if you haven't already done so. Okay, so for the remainder of the forum, a bit of a free flow here. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make a comment, ask a question? Perhaps they haven't had an opportunity in the sessions that we've had before. Because once again, just one of my values is to make sure that everybody has a voice in this forum.
It was just another issue that we had, speed limit reviews and consistency in speed zones. And the talk was of the team at Main Roads who actually assessed these. And we wondered, is it only one person or maybe two persons? We're being a bit rude there. But I think, personally, it's an issue for me for it seems irrational, some of the speed zoning, and if that can be resourced at Main Roads to get the assessments going a lot more, and some mechanism for feeding into that process from NRA or motorcycle clubs, etc. So that was we're a bit passionate about speed and speed limits, and the sensible one here was hosing it down a little bit. All right.
And once again, my request is that has been written down on your rule cheat sheet. Thank you. Comment? Yeah, please. Sorry, just use the mic. Thanks, Chris.
Just in short, just to make a point on that point, you're too busy looking at cameras, signs, speed limit changes, conditions of roads, etc., that you're not looking at the car in front or your exit point or where you should be going. And I talk from experience, seriously. I mean, I've had a lot of speeding fines, and I'm not a hoon, but seriously, it's because there are too many things going on that, I just can't. You've got to think quickly anyway on a bike, but I can't think with all that going on. The roadworks on the freeway, the signage, don't get me started. But yeah, consistency, something needs to be done about it, and a board that rides, so not just one person assessing that road, and putting it to a board who actually ride and can actually sit back and actually understand more about what the rules mean. Yeah.
And I think that's a lovely one. And I think they did ask that question. It was quite complex, the criteria. But what I'm hearing about here is that the MRA needs a voice in contributing to some of that criteria and the assessment. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Got it. Beautiful.
I volunteer.
Let's make sure we have the microphone. Peter?
I volunteer to do all the speed limits.
Peter, do you want to say something?
Just for you.
So we're still in this free fall, so if there's any comments, and I've got Kathy, and I think, did I have Marty? Yeah, so Kathy and Marty up to Peter.
Just before I hand the mic to you, just on behalf of MRA, this coming Wednesday is Right to Bike to Work Day. Who knows what's behind that as a model? Why are we doing that?
No, I don't.
To make car drivers aware of how many bikers are on the road. I was totally blown away with the stats there, that we've got 9.3 people out of 100 that own bikes here in WA, which is double the rest of the states. Sorry? Yeah, I do have a collection. I've culled it down to 5. But yeah, look, the whole purpose is to raise awareness of how many bikers are on the road. So if you can't ride your bike to work, I can't because I work where I live. So, but you know, we're going to be promoting over the next few days. This is an opportunity for you to take this on board. Go to the MRA page, share what we're doing. We're going to be setting up tags so you can take your helmet to work. You can take a photo of your helmet at your work. It's also a promotion of you, your work, whatever. So we want to encourage all bikers to do something proactive this coming Wednesday. Ride a bike to work day, in whatever format that is. But watch out for the MRA page, and we're going to sort of give you some guidelines to help us to promote that. We want it to be the biggest and best bike to work day ever. Yeah?
Good suggestion, thank you. So I've got Kathy, Marty, and the gentleman in front, so Kathy first.
Can I just, following up on your Right to Work Day, have you got a flyer for us to put on Facebook to share to our groups? Something that, you know, we can put out to all our riders to say this is what we're doing, because I looked for one the other day and I couldn't find it. Okay, so yeah, if you share that, that'd be great. My question kind of follows on about the speed thing. So I've done a lot of shadowing and I ride a lot with the learner group. The problem I've got is honestly only finding out recently that learners in WA are restricted to 100 kilometres an hour. And I personally feel that is unsafe if I'm in a 110 zone. Now, it was quite a bit of contention that's come up, and a lot of arguments where people say, no, it's 110, other people say, no, it's 100. I end up going in the Department of Transport and being told it was definitely 100. Does anybody else feel like doing 100 in a 110 zone is not safe when you're in a group ride? Those groups go at 110. You know, they just do. We all are on a motorbike, not because we like to go slow. So, you know, is that something that's ever going to be looked at?
Once again, Kathy, please have you noted that? This is absolutely critical we know this, yeah?
Yep.
Yep, right, thank you.
So, just a lot of shadowing, don't like doing 100.
Thanks, Kathy. Marty?
Thanks. Look, I'm exactly following on that same topic, and this is my opinion only, but to have road safety and specifically the government focus just on speeding, it's moronically simplistic propaganda that speed alone kills. It's a catalyst. Inattention kills. Not right into condition kills. Poor machinery machine maintenance skills and things like that. The speed is a catalyst, but just focusing on that is just moronic. It really is.
You might be trying to make it we can't. Oh, sorry. Chris will do it for you. Thanks, Chris. Gentlemen, just here.
My question is just in regards to MRA being relevant in regards to registration of motorcycles. I know there's a lot of vintage groups and stuff like that because down the island where I'm from, there are a few of them down there, and some guys have 30, 40 motorbikes, and wondering if the MRAs are going to be getting involved in helping to reduce the cost of registration of motorbikes, because you can only drive one motorbike at a time.
So I think it's a question. Anybody from MRA want to address that?
If you like.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. Just a gentleman in the back. Thanks, Chris.
Hi guys, I'm Mark from the Motor Trade Association. Just to answer your question there, which was again, could you repeat for me?
In regards to his MRA being involved in motorcycle registration?
So something else we've looked at as well with motorcycle registrations is obviously returning riders and motorcycle registrations as well.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry guys. Okay. Sorry. So yeah, with motorcycle registrations and bits and pieces, we're looking at mandatory off-road motorcycle registration, obviously, for motorcycles as well. Unfortunately, guys, my train of thought's completely gone, so I'll have to pass this over and come back to you if you don't mind. Sorry, guys.
Dave.
Thank you. You do.
Just got a quick comment. I'm not too sure if MRA has any involvement. Road conditions are everything.
Sorry, just before we go on, could we just answer that question?
I don't know how to answer the question.
Sorry, so let's just, and I'll come back to you, so let's just answer that question first. Thanks, sir.
Yeah, registration, this is something we looked at in the past. You've certainly got a valid point. I think people have got 5 or 10 or more bikes and got to pay registration each one. We drive one at a time, so it's probably something we probably need to look at and actually have a chat with the Department of Transport for. But at the moment, it's not on the radar, but thanks for bringing it up.
I can remember the answer now, sorry.
Thanks, you've been very patient with me. I know that there has been a release recently that motorcycles over or under the age of 1990 now will now be able to have what we call classic motorcycle registration, which will allow classic motorcycles now to be licensed for 3 months of the year, so you're not paying the full registration on it. And hopefully, again, the vehicle will have to be licensed with a recognised hub in order for you to access that classic vehicle and classic motorcycle registration. So I think those of you who've probably got some lovely old bikes sitting around that don't have licensing on because of the cost of licensing those bikes, if it's a classic bike older than 1990 in the new year, you will be able to license those bikes for 3 months. That will cost about
Good
97 bucks.
Thank you.
So apologies for the confusion.
No, thank you. And your stablemate on your right-hand side?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that, Dave. I didn't realise the question wasn't answered. As I was saying, road conditions are everything to motorcycles, wet roads. Normally we're riding on a wet road, a lot of things can be hidden. We know to avoid paint, but I'm actually getting disgusted with the amount of oil and crap all over our roads, around roundabouts, on main roads, streams foot wide, 10 kilometres long. I wonder how the hell so much oil will be dumped on a road. We don't see that in the wet, and I'm just wondering, I think maybe the MRA could put some pressure on some department to say, how about getting some of these heaps of junk off the road, because they're just making hell of a mess, and a simple corner can become a statistic quite easily.
Thank you. And I think that's a nice thing from what you were saying with your outcome about road services and the warning signs and what have you.
Can I get gentlemen back just to place that? Anyone comes across any hazards on the roads, let's say we want to get an app made up for these things, at the moment just call 138 138. That's the main roads department. Call them up, give them the location, what the problem is, have it on several occasions, and normally within 24 hours they will fix the problem. But we still do it like an app. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew, member of the MRA. A couple of points I want to raise. The variable speed limits that we're having through the roadworks. We had, the latest example was Road Highway joining Quinana Freeway. It goes 100, 80, 60, 80, 100. If we're going through roadworks as a safety thing, why can we not just have one speed limit? Take the lowest speed limit and run that through the whole roadworks.
No way.
So what you're looking at is, when you go onto that road, until you go underneath the bridge, then you're dropping down to 60. It's causing traffic to speed up, slow down, which is making it hazardous as you're driving through. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I'm not sure if we do it in WA, but the amount of diesel that comes out of trucks, are they having anti-spill caps on their fuel tanks? In the UK, we have that as a law, because a lot of people don't realise that if you fill up a tank full of diesel, when you accelerate, the spare diesel comes back into the tank. If you don't have an overspill cap on it, it ends up flinging the diesel out of the top of the actual tank.
So looks like we've got somebody with an answer.
Yeah.
Hang 2 seconds.
Been a long time truck driver as well as a motorcycle instructor. Basically, most of your fuel tanks will have breather caps on them, and you're only allowed to fill them 90%. Now, you'll get truckies that do overfill them. Sometimes you'll have your O-ring seals or your little D seals, and they will fatigue. You'll see there's a lot of trucks out there that aren't, let's say, very flash. And then they'll have a lot of trucks running Detroits and stuff like that, have oil catch cans as well. You'll find a lot of trucks that we run, they've got little oil breather hoses that come out of the engines and the blocks, and they will drop oil. But legally, they must carry catch cans.
Thank you for that. Did you have that? That was it? Good. But once again, please write it down. Yeah, we need to capture this information. Other comments? Sorry, Michael.
Is David from Main Road still here?
No, he's gone on holiday. Poor guy was on holiday for maybe.
I'll mention it anyway. His points about the evolution of the roads from the 50s with regard to the width and speed and volume and so forth was obvious. But some of the things that he mentioned I wasn't aware of, which was very informative. But I just wanted to put it on and maybe we can capture it in minutes so he can he talked about a lot of the things that they're doing now. Road conditions are a huge thing. I think it's probably bigger than Ben-Hur with their resources, but we can try and keep it at the forefront. But nothing was mentioned about what the future is. So we're looking into the future now where we're going to have automated vehicles on the road and other such things that could be. So if we can put that on the radar now, so we're thinking about in the engineering aspects and the safety aspects, what does that mean from a motorcyclist perspective and so forth. That's just the point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just quickly, the gentleman tapped me on the shoulder in regards to the gentleman's talking about speed limits, and main roads apparently are not, this is just in his conversation with him, he's suggesting that in relation to Hepburn, that main roads are not the final say of the speed limit. Sorry, I don't know who you are, perhaps you don't want to say who you are, but that's okay. But he was saying the City of Swan are responsible for that section, and there's a few things why, there's a few reasons why, so it's not necessarily main roads entirely.
Good clarification. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments, Ted? Yes, please. Yeah. So it sounds like, Terry Ann, are you addressing that one, or is it something?
So, I'm Terry Ann Pettit from the WA Local Government Association. So, main roads are the speed zoning authority in WA, and only main roads can set the speed limit. Local governments can request reviews and changes, but local governments cannot set the speed limit or change it.
Cool. So I've got it right, Terry, and local government are contributing to the consultation process and the recommendations, and I think what we're hearing today is that MRA needs a voice into that contribution, but the sole authority is with main roads and speed limits. Beautifully said, thank you. Michael?
Just one clarification then, if my understanding from out there this morning is correct, then the local jurisdictions, the councils, are responsible for the condition and the uptake and maintenance of the roads, correct? But main roads for all, so main roads only have that 15,000, but they're responsible to put the speed limits for all roads. Is that accurate? In the state? Okay, well, you mentioned about communication between organizations. That's going to be critical because the condition of the roads is going to be obviously very important to the what's posted as the speed limit, and you've got two separate and disparate sometimes organizations that need to be communicating to make sure that those are appropriate. Anyway, that's just one point.
Would you agree?
Yeah. So Terry, I'd say there's 139 local governments. Just to scare you. Do we have anybody left from main roads? I know David had to leave. Does anybody know the answer to that one? Does everybody hear the answer? Anybody from Road Safety Commission know the answer? Yeah, no, I just want to try and answer your question. Does anybody know? Yeah. So, Chris, would you mind? Thanks.
So, my name's Travis. I'm a lawyer. I'm with people taking it. I'm also an MRA guy from way back when, and back when I was Vice President of MRA, we had quite a few discussions with politicians and main roads about increasing the speed limits. And they say basically it's obviously get stuck. They said the speed limit is set the worst vehicle on the road, not the best vehicle. And motorcycles obviously are the best handling high-speed vehicle, so the speed limits are set for us. They're set for the four-wheel drive and caravan and stuff like that. And that's unfortunately what we have to live with. We raised the idea of having two separate speed limits as we do in other jurisdictions, and again we got told that everyone has to be equal. So we just stuck with the caravan four-wheel drive speed limit.
You just said it, what we have to live with, but not live with, we're dying.
So I don't know how long ago that was, Travis, but it might be worthwhile rattling the cage again. So if local government have a voice, why can't they interrupt? That would be my comment. Whether they listen or not.
Oh, it does.
You have a voice.
So let's bring up two other points before I like. One, autonomous vehicles get stuck.
Yes.
As a lawyer, I find them horrendous. And if you want to look at the problems with them, go to the States, have a look at the court cases over there. It's a nightmare. And the other one, we actually brought up, which was suggested by our group, that police should have cameras in corners. It's hard drivers to drive with double white lights. And that would be far better use of multi-node cameras than speed cameras. Cars going around with double white lights over the time.
Yeah. And Travis, usual request, have you got that written down? If you're sure, just make sure we have it.
Yeah, sure.
And just sign your name under it. All right, so we're almost at the end of this particular segment. Any final comments before I hand it over to Dave to wrap 2024? Well done. Dave, to hand it over.
Thanks, that's great feedback. We've got a lot of work to do in the weeks, haven't we, Jeff? Coming ahead, and Steve. Yeah, thanks very much for coming along. Lunch is over there, served shortly. I just want to, there's a lot of conversation about speed, I just want to touch how the speed are set mostly. They set up the speed bars on the road, cars go across a certain amount of time, they get the average, and then it's 85% of that. That's how the speed is set. There's nothing scientific or wonderful. Look, I mean, some roads, main roads, may look at how many intersections, how many schools or persons home, and set record that. The majority of roads are set 85% of what the average speed is. And that's how it is. It's in my opinion, it's a rubbish way of setting the speed limit. I guess they need some system, but I would prefer to see people go out there, look at the road, and see, is this a 50k road, or 60 or 70, what it may be, according to the road conditions. And like I said, it could be the geometry of the road, the number of intersections, what's around it. But I think it's a battle. We can talk speed for a long time. I don't think we're going to get anywhere. I must tell you, it's got a big callus in the middle of my head here because it just doesn't work. But thanks for that. Once again, appreciate this. Steve, can you go around and collect all the notes off the table for us, please? Because we want to get them all together. As the MRA, put the action plan together. Keep an eye on our website. We'll be sending these emails out to all of you guys anyway. The results from this and from the survey are online. And we'll be in touch. And thank you very much for your input. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Best I move this, huh?